There won't be a lot of structure to it, but crazy amount of information. You don't mind being this close to me because of the cold? Are you sure?
No, that's fine.
You're Superman spreading.
Sorry.
You're kind of doing...
It's just comfortable for how me to sit. I've been doing more pull-ups lately, Brian, so it's harder for me to sit to try to make myself
How many
smaller.
pull-ups can you do?
Mostly, I guess when I was younger, it was pretty easy for me to do 3 sets of 10.
Okay.
And now I'm older, I'm trying to get it back. So usually, depending on how much rest I do, I can get 2 sets of 10, and then maybe the last set might be like 5 or something.
I don't know if in my life I've ever... Now, when you say pull-up...
Yeah.
Okay.
Grab a bar.
Now that's chin-up.
Not chin-up, yeah.
Pull-up.
I'm doing it, yeah, pull-up.
I don't know if I've ever been able to do that. Ever. My whole life.
Your whole life?
Also,
for you, it's hard to find a pull-up bar tall enough to do it. Right? They're not all designed for you. Like, you just, I can touch it. Like, what's the problem here, guys? I don't have to pull myself up on anything.
There's no reason to go tallest on this interview.
No, but I mean, that's a real problem you must have encountered. Like, why no pull-ups? Because,
No, it's because I was always the giant kid.
Yeah.
You know, you're of normal stature and you're really buffed out, so you're good and good for you. And huzzah, huzzah! I'm always this lanky kid, and even when I worked out, which I don't really anymore, but there was a time there were some pictures of me back in the day where I looked pretty good. But there's no way I'm pulling this giant frame up. You know, so we would have that in PE class. You know, there'd be the pull-up station, and then they keep track who could do what. I could never do it. But then they went over to the bench press thing, and I was okay at that, and I could curl and stuff. But there's no way I could do a pull-up. I would love to do a pull-up before I die. I weigh 240, which means I'd have to go to one of those lat pull-down things and be able to pull 240 down. Correct?
oh, yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Roughly. I mean, it's the same.
Or I think they make assisted pull-up machines where it's like you have a little sort of
I've done those.
device that you put your knees on, and they add weight or take weight to that, so that way it assists you going up and down.
All right.
You can start there. I don't know.
I'm sitting here, guys, with Adam Winrich, hard name to say with my speech impediment, a.k.a., as you all know him, Adam Crack.
No, I guess not everyone knows that. Like, hey, this is a whippy dude. Has cracky pants.
You get called Cracky Pants?
Only by Robert Bobby Dennis, I think.
Why does he call you Cracky Pants?
I don't know, he just wants to come up with a fun nickname. But
right.
definitely, yeah, people are like, Winrich, or if you were in Germany, it's Winrich. Yeah, sounds much better.
And what does it mean,
German.
since you know your German background so well?
Oh, actually, it doesn't mean anything. It's just like, well, there's 13 ways to spell Winrich. So
Let's hear them all.
I don't know all of them,
I wanna hear 'em
but
all.
the other way to spell it'd be like Weinreich, which would be Wine Kingdom.
Okay.
And which sounds cool, but Winrich itself is like a different spelling, so it doesn't really mean much.
And how many spellings of crack are there?
Well, let's see. There's
We can
CRA. No, there's actually a couple. So I don't make a lot of crack jokes, but there's that band on circuit called Crack.
Right.
And
It's
then they
spelled
use
in
like the
Gaelic
Gaelic
way.
crack. Yeah,
Right.
CRAIC. Some guy.
And isn't that pronounced Craig?
They say crack.
They
They
say
make lots
crack,
of crack
okay.
jokes.
Enough about that.
But I heard someone told me yesterday
Okay.
that they were like, hey, don't you? Mooney's making jokes about you. Wait, no, sorry, no, it was Brune is making jokes about
not
you.
about you, you know.
And they were saying something like, with a name like Crack, he's only qualified for 3 jobs. He either does
two.
script show at a Renaissance fair, he either sells crack, or he's a plumber.
Oh yeah, I delivered it much better than that, and it was a much funnier moment.
The way they delivered it, I was like, that doesn't sound like Brian. This feels like they must have heard it third hand from someone that was like,
Well,
hey, they did this joke.
No, I talk about you because I'm at a fair and I do a tiny bit of whip cracky stuff just at the beginning of my show, and whenever I'm at a fair that you're at, there's always this debate of should I just cut it? You are known, and don't let your head get too big. Your head will pop up. Is in this business, you kind of exploded in a way. You came out here and you threw a show together with your whip skills, and your whip skills are pretty legendary, And so it's for a guy like me who just uses a whip to tell a few jokes, and it's the beginning 8 minutes of his show, and then the rest of it is fire eating and magic and juggling. I always think, now, how many people out there have already seen you? And I'm only over there, and we're right in front of your performance space. I can hear you.
Yeah.
So I'm over there, and you probably hear me too, but you're cracking a lot of
Yeah.
whips, and I hear your harmonica and everything. And I'm like, there he is, man. He's right there. And there's a little insecurity, I'll admit it. And I think every now and then I bring you up because I have to make sure the audience knows that I'm aware of it. I'm all about
sure.
truth on stage, truth in comedy. I'm aware there's a much better whip artist at the fair. Don't worry about it. These are jokes. I'm a comedian. He's funny too, but
But you could set it up like, I mean, there's certain things where like
well,
the
let's write
audience
the
is-
joke now, and I'll deliver it in a couple hours.
But
Go
no,
ahead.
about being aware of something, like being self-aware. Like you can either address it, or it'd be one of those things where someone's gonna say something, and you just have your material laying in wait.
Right.
Like a little like.
No one ever
Right.
comes to me. By the way, I have a huge cold, so this is going to be a hard day to get through for me.
Every
Probably
cold,
not a good day.
Every cold Brian has is a huge cold.
Ah.
See, that's why he's for the comedy. Like people come and watch me with a whip cracking.
When did you start cracking whips?
When I was 8 years old in 1989, after seeing the third Indiana Jones movie in the theaters.
Wow, that early.
Yeah.
8 years old. Now,
Yeah.
now your mom and dad were okay with that.
Yeah, they were fine. I mean, both of my parents sort of had a rural upbringing, sort of near in Eau Claire County, Wisconsin. And so my dad had been on the Boy Scouts and made a bunch of stuff out of rope. So I was like, hey, Dad, I want a whip. He's like, well, I'm probably throw one together. So he made a whip out of rope for me. And then
You still have that whip?
No. I don't know what the heck happened to it. So I remember the thing is I got this one, but then I had this insatiable drive, like, I would like a better whip than this, please.
Okay.
So I remember at some point I took the original whip, he did, and I was like, let's braid something over it to make it look more like a whip. So I think we went to a craft store in
Tandy
town.
leather, maybe.
No, we didn't.
But you remember
too
Tandy
small.
leather?
Yes, I've been there.
Sure.
We went to a craft store to buy a vinyl, like black vinyl, and I thought I could cut that up and make a whip out of it. And some people have made whips out of vinyl, not very good, but I think I've tried braiding that over the original rope whip and ruined it in the process.
Ah.
And then I think the one that I still have that I did make, so after that rope whip, I wanted to braid my own whip, so I took some leather that my dad had that he had
Okay.
like fashioned some sort of chaps out of, and I cut that up with like a little razor blade into lace, and then braided it onto a wooden handle, and then couldn't get much more leather after that, so I just kept rebuilding it, trying to improve it. So that whip I still have.
You were very industrious. I have to admit, I started juggling when I was maybe like 12 or 13. I was about to say I didn't make anything, then I just realized I did. I did make like little juggling beanbags, but that's much easier than whipping. And so you get on stage when? At what age?
Oh, doing
To actually
performing
do the-
stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see. I'm trying to think. So my first wanting to perform thing, I think, would have been like trying to do like theater in high school, like as a freshman. But the thing is, I didn't know what I know now is that they just want you to make big choices. I thought like, oh, we're supposed to be like those cool dudes in the movies and be natural, but that's like no choice. I mean, it is a choice, but it's
Naturalistic acting.
but it's not a choice that's going to sell like, ooh, I'm acting on the stage, and like the parents aren't going to be impressed, and the
Stage
director's not gonna be
acting
impressed.
versus film
Can't-
acting.
Film acting.
So you were trying to be a film actor.
I think so, and like it would have been better if like read the script, like for the auditions, read the script. So I got one small part in one play, and then I like never got cast again because they're like, we need like these other kids are making better choices than what Adam's making.
Okay.
So then after that, to be on stage, it was with the harmonica. Really, was the bigger drive once I really hit that.
Something
hard
else
at
you're
age
also very
15.
good at.
Harmonica was what I wanted to be on stage doing. Like with the whips, I didn't really look at it as like there was a performance outlet for it. I just liked it. I didn't think it was something I could perform.
Right.
But the harmonica was like all the people I'm listening to are on stage performing, so there's a very
Okay.
clear precedent of like this is what you do with it. So then, boom, I got to be on stage. So I was sneaking into bars underage, like going to jams, getting kicked out.
Yeah?
I wanted to play harmonica. Yeah.
Up in Eau Claire.
Sometimes. Up in Eau Claire. Yeah.
That's
and,
awesome.
and lacrosse. So sometimes like riding with my friend of mine, like middle of the night down to a jam in lacrosse, middle of the week, play
That's
in bar,
cool.
stay away from the bar, and then like get home at like 4 a.m.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good blues musician story.
It is.
I mean, you path not taken. Do you? Well, I'm going to ask the question. Do you regret not? I mean, you still do it,
I still play.
but this
No.
is your job. This is
is my
your
job.
job. This is your career. This is what you get up every morning and do. You have to make the phone calls, send the emails, send the promo kits to make sure you're booked. You're not doing that, I don't think, with your music.
Oh, well, I would say, so one thing, difference, so obviously money-wise is actually funny. People hear me play harmonica, like, you should do something with that, man. And I'm like, oddly enough, it's much easier to make money as a whip-cracking performer than it is as a harmonica player, blues harmonica
You're
player.
way more unique.
Or I would say, actually, there was a turning point. There was a point in my harmonica playing, maybe around about 2006, 2007, where I was finally in a band with people my age. Before
Okay.
that, everyone was like 10, 20 years older than me, and I was the young guy wanting to hang out at these blues gigs. And all the people listening to it were also much older than me. But I finally got in a band that was like working a couple times a month at least, which has been good, playing with them. But then the Renaissance Fair thing started, and right away, like doing one show at a Renaissance Fair when I had no show, just the
Was
skills.
that this fair?
No, it was a small fair in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, like about right next to where I grew up.
Okay.
It's basically my home fair. It's since closed and
Okay.
reopened and closed and reopened. But my like first show there in like a half-hour set make more money than I could in 4 hours of a smoky bar blues harmonica playing. And I was like, oh, this doesn't
This
take
is
too
the
much
thing.
math. I was like, so basically when the music felt like it was going someplace good, then all of a sudden like, ooh, shoot, no, I got to do this Renaissance Fair thing. Man, I
Wow.
still play harmonica when I feel like it. but-
That was quite. I mean, you were on a precipice right there. It could have gone either way. But then when money shows up, you got to pay your bills. You got to go there, and you're still in the arts, man. You're a performer. You still love doing it.
Yeah, and I play harmonica in my show, so I have I have a few different outlets
He gets
for
a
it.
way of playing like bluesy harmonica at a Ren Fair.
So I didn't actually start wanting to do it in my show because I'm aware the harmonica only goes back, the version that everyone knows about 150 years or something, to Germany in like about 1830s, 40s.
Okay.
And then the one everyone knows for blues goes back to 1896.
Okay.
So obviously it doesn't fit.
Right.
And I was like, all right, I had done living history and stuff as a kid, like fur trade reenactment, and I did Old West cowboy reenactment.
Fur
and
trade.
stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, because this
figured, yeah.
area of Wisconsin, like
Sure.
if logging, some people get into logging history of this area.
Sure.
And other people, if you want to go back further, you get into the fur trade
Gotcha.
history one when the
Like
French.
the Revenant.
Yeah, basically, yeah, mountain man type stuff, or French voyager type stuff.
Sure.
So I also have a history of in my life of like wanting to dress up in strange clothes, do historical reenacting. I want to put this costume on and go out and hang out with people. I feel so I did that, but also with rendezvous and fur trade reenactment. Not a lot of money there either.
No. Now you also are the owner. So you embrace this. You took on the moniker Adam Crack, which sounds great for a bullet artist. It's awesome. You're now known. You're now very renowned. You're now the holder of how many world records?
Oh, I only hold maybe like 10 or so. Something
Can I
like
say
that.
really quick that I like that you're one of the few people I know that actually goes into a thinking position.
Oh.
And I love it. No, I love it. I think it's charming. More people should go back to that. So let me ask you, well, I don't know, go full Rodin, more just sort of I like that.
No.
How many do you have? Records.
Oh. Yeah, so I just say I hold about 10, but the easier number for me to keep track of is like how many I have set, because that number keeps going tick, tick, tick up as I set one.
Right.
What I hold, like, ooh, maybe someone broke that record, or maybe I did a record several times in a row. So, so in the holding category, that can be hard to like keep track of day to day. But I've set 32 records.
Wow.
So what I like to say more, what's funny for me is like I'll see other people, other friends of mine do Guinness records, and I see them get all butthurt when they lose one of them. And I like to tell them, hey man, I lost more records than you have ever set. Get over it.
Yeah, very nice. What is the one that's the most impressive? What's going to blow people's mind? Is it don't you have one for a longest whip? No.
Oh yeah, no, I've done several. Sorry, I go back to the thinking process.
I like it.
No, I can't
No,
do it.
no, please don't stop it. I think it's charming.
Well, so you know, I have some tattoos on the front here. So these are actually 4 Guinness records. It says pain and love. And it says pain here because like just that part of my shoulder before I knew how to take care of my body just would hurt like a lot. And I thought that was going to be what would end my career, like in my 20s even, like, ooh, this is going to, rotator cuff's going to break.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to be
I
able
don't
to do
whip as
anything
much
anymore.
as you, but I can relate.
So about 2007, there were only 3 records for whip cracking that Guinness had. It was longest whip, most bull whip cracks a minute, and most Australian stock whip cracks a minute. And I set all 3.
Wow.
So at one point, I held all the Guinness records for whip cracking with only 3 of them. And then to celebrate, then I got these tattoos
Ah.
back then. And now Guinness has many more categories for record. They kept expanding
Cool.
it, trying to make it
So
interesting.
you're doing your show at the Renaissance Fair. You have to develop the show. Did it come to you? Was there difficulty with that? Did it come out? Did it come out perfectly? I mean, it doesn't come out perfectly the first time.
Not perfect.
How did the creation process work for you?
Oh,
You had a certain amount of skills of the whip, and
yeah, I would let's see. The creation process first is just I like doing it a lot, and I guess I had little shame. Like I was willing to try anything in front of an audience to see like, well, that sounds good. Let's try it. Let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. I was just so happy about being able to come up the creative process of come up with something, do it in front of an audience, see if they like it. Oh, you don't like that? All right, I'll be back in a half hour. Let me come up with something else and do that. So I was always prepared to do that to try to make things better. So I started, and then at the beginning, then I would get advice here and there from people and try to throw something together, little bits of advice. But then it didn't really gel until about 2010. I'm now like 4 years in. I was negotiating with the Arizona Renaissance Festival, and the owner was like, I was trying to get a good day rate, and he was like, Adam, you're asking for Class A act pay. You are not a Class A act. And I was like, oh. So he's really, I've learned more about him now. He was just trying to keep his thumb over me. He likes dominating entertainers at a certain given time.
This goes out to the public.
Oh, he knows it.
Okay.
I didn't mention his name anyway.
You just said the fair, and never mind.
Anyway,
you've been here, and you work at the GET. I'm sorry.
No, just to finish it, just a real quick, is that, so I would get, those first 4 years, I would get little bits of advice. People watch me like, hey, how about try this, try this. But it didn't gel until I had this sort of manager be like, no, Adam, you're not what you think you are. And I was really hurt by it. I was like, oh. So I asked all my other entertainer friends, what do I need to do? And Doug Mumaw, who was here as a swordsman, Doug was like, well, Adam, you need to do what we did. You need to hire a director. I was like, oh, Doug, will you direct my show? And like, yeah, sure. So for a whole run of that fair, Doug didn't have time to watch my show on the weekends, but I would videotape one show every weekend. I'd give him the tape, he would watch it, and then we would meet for like an hour or two once a week, every week for the fair, for him to be like, try this, Adam, and let's work through this. And Adam, you kind of need these nuts and bolts, because he'd been doing it for decades at that point. So he knew other things I needed, like the idea of transitions in between bits. I
remember I gave you some advice too, but most of mine was just to sabotage you.
Oh. Well, what I learned was I needed like the little bits of advice I could use here and there, but I needed someone to go through the whole process with me. One person, one vision. Let's work on this week after week after week, grind it out. And then by the end, I didn't have the show that I'm doing now. I wouldn't say I had a finished show, but I had a much better idea of like how to build a show from that experience.
And now you build a show, and you work mostly in the round. You work in this grassy area right behind us. We're sitting at the benches of a stage at Bristol called the Lord Mayor's Forum. Historically, this is the first stage I was ever on at this fair. And I've now been pretty much on every stage here that puts variety type acts on it. But I was going to ask, I went off on a digression there. You work in the rounds. You got to keep your head on a swivel.
More or less. Well,
do you prefer being on a round? 'Cause I know that you were at Southern one year on a regular proscenium stage.
I was.
But which do you prefer?
Oh,
Because you're in around every other gig, no?
Yeah, let's see. No, I'm basically on stages at 2 festivals in Texas, Scarborough and TRF. I'm on a stage, and I'm basically in a 3/4 round situation at Arizona, and then I'm full round here. I'd say mainly what I like about here is round or not is like, is the audience in shade?
Are they?
They are here, yes,
Okay,
for the
good.
most part. Because at the Texas Renaissance Festival, I share a stage, and at Arizona, I share a stage with the Birds of Prey show. Arizona, because of low humidity, it seems fine that there's no shade there. But in Texas, by Houston, it is brutal subtropical weather to not have shade on that stage. So I'm even like traumatized by it to the point where like if people are here in the sun trying to sit down and watch a show, I will go up to them like, you guys, hey, you don't have to do this right now. You can like go sit over there, sit over here in the shade, or you can come back to a less busy show and you'll totally be able to sit on the benches in the shade.
A less busy show.
No, it's the way my schedule works here.
No,
The first 2 shows are very packed, and then I will see people like far away waiting for my show to start.
This is if you don't know this fair, the area where Adam and I are currently sitting is kind of Main Street Bristol Renaissance Fair. So you got a great location for a gig. This is actually a great idea for a stage here. I just wish it were more developed and built up. And then this would probably be one of the best stages here if it had a better backdrop and a little higher up the ground. The tree, of course, is part of it.
Well, what's interesting just about this stage that we are looking at, that you can't see, but we're looking at, versus me up there, is that here, it's the food court is behind it. So I was watching people sitting here watching a show the other day, and like people on the edges are just looking around at what the food court people are doing, and then they'll look at the show again. Then they'll look around and see what the food court people. They're just staring, or they're staring off at the sides. When I'm
got
up
everybody
there,
facing in.
when everyone's facing in, they're watching me. They could look across the aisle, but they're all static people around me. So there's nothing really else to watch except me.
Okay.
And the middle. So it works very well. And also yesterday something that happened that's interesting is like in the round, like can people just like walk in? Is that bad? What's interesting is that I will feel the whole energy of the audience change. Like yesterday, there was a little kid that started just walking into the circle, and like
geez.
I wasn't doing anything dangerous at the moment, but I could feel the whole energy of the audience change. It was, whoop, 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 whoop. I'm like, at that moment, I'm like, either there's a drunk behind me, or a child, or a drunk child. So I need
Could be those.
Any one of those.
This is Wisconsin. What I ask everybody this, I do this interview situation with, and we're going to wrap things up pretty soon. Is there a moment in your day, or I usually say in your show, but for you, I'll start opening up in your day. Go back to the show. I think that's more specific. Is there a moment in your show when you really, I struggle with mental health and stuff and depression and that? I'm not asking you if you do. I don't care. That's fine. But is there a moment in your show that actually brings you more joy than others, that you almost look forward to that little moment in your show that makes you brighten up, for lack of a better phrase? And if not, no. If it all,
I gotta think of moments they can. No, I don't know. I would say here. So I got there's a gag, basically where it's like you got the one whip out, started the whip cracking, and just pointed at a person and be like, "Hey, you with the bottle, hey, hold it up," and then I'm holding the whip, like,
Right.
I will unscrew the cap from that bottle.
Okay.
And then, and then drop the whip and go over, unscrew the cap.
There
and
you
then
go.
hold it up to the audience. And
that brings you a certain amount of joy.
because it's just a stupid gag, but I can tell it makes the whole audience like so happy. I feel a little bit like Bill Murray in
But
that
that's
moment.
exactly the kind of answer I'm looking for, Adam. That's perfect. It's a moment of joy.
It's a moment of joy. It's not like I'm not doing anything hard.
It's just
at all.
silly.
It's
It's a
just
moment
a
of
silly
light.
gag that everyone there's several laughs.
I'm going to move my hand like this, Adam, so in the editing process, I know to fast forward to right here. You move your hand as well. Basically, what's happening below my hand is your URL, your website, your bona fides. But why don't you go ahead and say it out loud? People want to find you on the internet.
Oh, if you want to, let's see. You look up Adam CWM on YouTube, or on TikTok or Instagram. It's at Win Rich Adam. Win like you win money, then you are rich, then Adam on Instagram or TikTok.
Okay. And where can people see the rest of this season, 2023?
2023, I'll be here at the Bristol Renaissance Fair through Labor Day, and then I'll be at the Texas Renaissance Festival pretty much all of October and November.
All right. So, guys, I'm hanging out here with multi-record holder, thinker, good guy, dear friend, very talented individual. You get a chance to see him on the road. Please check out Adam Crack, and I'm going to let you look down the lens, and why don't you say goodbye in a way only Adam Crack could.
Goodbye, everybody. As all my fans always expect me to say, I know.
Bye, everybody.